And I'm taking you back now to 2014 when...
I'm sorry, is this related to the Police Portfolio Committee?
Bro, he's going all the way back to 2014.
Why I'm asking you the question about blackface, because
86 people get murdered a day on average in South Africa. He wants to talk about 2014 blackface, bro.
But transport themselves to the blackface incident in 2012. Do you think that you may have?
This is an affluent black man, probably lives in a very wonderful gated community. He's crying about blackface. Ladies and gentlemen, he gets the biggest paycheck probably at Newsroom Africa. Because, right?
Didn't condemn a blackface incident in the Democratic Youth Alliance, in the Dasso incident back in 2014.
First of all, just explain to me, what does this have to do with crime in South Africa?
Today,
right now, what you're doing is swaying the conversation away from...
No, I'm not. I'm saying to you the following.
He's just yapping, bro.
The cases to
grab the belly,
court, prosecute them properly, etc. Then how are we going to get the rotten apples out of the police? Not mentioning the disciplinary.
Those guys are not catching me today, tomorrow.
You
together,
are now the chairperson.
They're not catching me.
Of the portfolio
we upset these guys.
Police in
we upset these guys, man.
It's not a small position. It's not a...
Ladies and gents, another complete political takedown by none other than Mgambi. Amazing guy. I love this guy. Let's get straight into the video, man.
Watching News at Prime, let's get into another discussion now. Parliament's newly appointed chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, says there's an urgent need to transform the Crime Intelligence Unit.
He's going to get
for the unit to be turned into what he calls a potent crime-fighting tool, and this is going to put an end to the underfunding sector as well. At least that's what he's hoping for.
And like, for the record, let me just say something. I don't like Xoli. First of all, I don't like this face. I don't like this face, man. I don't like it. I don't like nothing about this guy. I feel like he's an EFF sympathizer as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, he's going to ask this guy about the blackface instead of asking him about what? Policing. Because he's what? The chairperson of police, of the police committee in parliament. He wants to see himself as a victim, but he's wearing a fine suit. He has one of the best jobs in the country, but he's always taking offense. Every time he speaks to a white person, it's on the terms of race. It's never about merit. It's never about fixing the country. Nothing.
Joining us now for more on his role as chairperson of the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament. Mr. Cameron, good evening to you and thank you for your time. You're quoted as saying we can't repeat the history of dysfunction within the police. Let's start with those deficiencies. What stands out for you?
Good evening. Thank you very much. So I think there are certain core issues that we discussed and that came up in the committee yesterday when we went over the budget allocations. And two of the very significant ones that were very clear was the discrepancy in terms of funding for detectives in South Africa, as well as police members that need to operate in the crime intelligence space. What's worrying about this is it basically means that, you know, for the past years, we've heard a lot about having so-called boots on the ground. And the discussion yesterday was to say that simply saying boots on the ground and adding more uniform members is not really going to resolve the challenges that we have, because essentially we need police members that are able to investigate crimes, detect crimes, and then take them, obviously, and then take the journey on with the MPA to ensure that prosecution occurs effectively. In terms of crime intelligence, it's challenging at the moment because we don't really have any real proactive capacity.
You know what sticks out to me? This nigga knows policing in detail. These are the guys we must promote, right? These are the guys we must all love and praise and put them in positions of power. These are the guys we love. I don't understand why people have a problem with this guy, really. I'm dumbfounded.
to stop crimes before they happen, or to intercept these criminals while or just before they are going to commit the crime. So those were two of the essential ones. Something else that stood out is I don't hear enough about looking after the psychological well-being of South African Police Service members. And I think it's something that might have been neglected in previous discussions. We need to look after our cops. They work in extremely difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
I like
That
it.
crime intelligence unit,
No homo.
how do you, as a committee, plan to have it working so optimally that it turns into this potent crime-fighting unit? When you work in a committee that I imagine is going to be a multi-party committee, and you're going to have to need the cooperation of the police management itself. Crime intelligence is perhaps one of the areas that fails us time and time again in the country, because if they were working optimally, they would be able to detect crimes before they happen.
You're 100% right. Crime intelligence is not working the way that it should. And unfortunately, as we've seen before, crime intelligence has been found to have been involved in other criminal activities and abusing the position that they are in. And often we see that career cops that have actually been promoted on merit before eventually get sidelined because they don't choose the wrong path. That being said, it is so that we still have many very good cops that work in that environment. I think from the committee's point of view, I don't see the fact that it's a multi-party committee as being an issue at all. In fact, yesterday it was fantastic to see the approach of the entire committee, because once we step into that room, we are then at service of the people, and Parliament at large is a representation of the people of South Africa, and we need to serve them the best we can. So when we step in there, our function is to do the relevant oversight over the institutions that we've been constitutionally mandated to do oversight of, namely the police, the Hawks, IPID, CIRA, and the Civilian Secretariat. So I don't see that as being an issue. With regards to crime intelligence specifically, I think there are a few things. Firstly, it's going to take time. This is not an overnight process. Secondly, we need to go and decide what the strategic plan would be for us. What are the measurables or the variables that we would like to measure?
And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to notice how he's breaking everything down as far as policing in South Africa is concerned, how everything has to be done, right? But Xoli, for some reason, always tries to bring in the race thing, There's something very, pernicious about that, man. If that's a word. Come for me.
To see what the improvement of crime intelligence is. Because at the moment, let's use detectives as an example. I know I'm jumping away from crime intelligence, but just a simple example for you. The detection rate by detectives in the country is between 60 and 70%. And that's a very broad number because we've got a massive range of different types of crimes that are committed. But it's quite low. Remember that only 14.5% of murders are actually solved in South Africa. So almost 80% of murders go unsolved. So this is very, very worrying. So if crime intelligence is bolstered, we've got officers being trained well, then the police can come and report and say, these are the results that we've seen through training. This is how we're implementing it. We're testing it in a certain space.
Brother.
Let's use
No
the Cape
offense,
Flats
but
or
police.
Alex, for that matter. In
That guy's
Gauteng.
not
Let's use
catching
that
me.
as an example. We're testing it there. These are the results that we're seeing. And through the committee, we can then put these measurables forward, and they need to come and give feedback. We agree on what we want the result to be, and they can then come, as we are constitutionally mandated to do that oversight. They can then return with the relevant feedback, whether they are succeeding or not. If not, why not? And how do we build a better success?
You've already spoken about the police's mental health. You said that is one of the areas that needs focus given the kind of pressure that police work under. Let's turn it around and look at the behavior of police towards communities, because that relationship as well has not been all that well. Do you believe that in most instances, police are trigger happy in this country?
Certainly not. I don't think that they are in most instances trigger happy. In fact, I know for a fact that the majority of cops have become scared of actually taking.
He pulled that right off his, you know what? You get what I'm saying? There's no evidence for what he just said.
Taking action sometimes
no evidence
because
whatsoever.
of consequences that are sometimes unfairly handed to them. So I think it's crucial that from our point of view, we cannot make any kind of sweeping statement. We need to consider each incident, no matter who was involved, objectively. So that's very important. And then secondly, I agree with you that the trust relationship with the police in South Africa is severely damaged, and it's going to take a long time to restore that. That being said, if we can boost the morale of the South African Police Service, it would already make a positive impact on the relationship with communities. We would see that energy levels on ground level to be proactive in policing would likely increase. If there's and that's what we encouraged in the committee yesterday, if we've got an integrated approach and we pull in, for example, the Department of Social Development as well as Justice, and we build a more integrated approach, it certainly will mean that we've got more effective policing. You see, there was an interesting report, I think it was Solidarity, that released it just over a year ago, that showed us that over 50% of detectives don't actually trust their colleagues. And that's very worrying. So we would need to do internal research to also then determine how that trust level increases, whether it improves in any way, and if not, what can we do to do that? One crucial part, sorry, I know I'm babbling on about it, but one very crucial part is we need to restore discipline in the police. And this is where IPID's budget comes in. And I'm very worried about this. The average amount of investigations or dockets that an IPID investigator has at the moment is 350 dockets per person. Now imagine having to investigate 350 cops, and likely there are more involved in each incident. It puts severe pressure on them, and if we don't get those cases to court, prosecute them properly, etc., then how are we going to get the rotten apples out of the police? Not mentioning the discipline.
Those guys are not catching me today, tomorrow.
You
together,
are now the chairperson.
They're not catching me.
Of the portfolio
we upset these guys.
Police in Parliament.
We upset these guys, man.
It's not a small position. It's not a position to be taken lightly. However, there are those who are watching you and are listening to you, but cannot help but transport themselves to the blackface incident in 2012. Do you think that you may have?
This is an affluent black man, probably lives in a very wonderful gated community. He's crying about blackface. Ladies and gentlemen, he gets the biggest paycheck probably at Newsroom Africa, because I see him everywhere, right? He cries about racism and the blackface. He's gonna disregard everything that this man has just said about policing, the things we have to do, the problems we have to solve as far as policing is concerned in the country. He wants to talk about blackface. Ladies and gentlemen, Xoli doesn't take us serious. This guy doesn't take us serious, this guy.
A credibility crisis as chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police.
No, actually, not at all. In fact, I don't think there's anyone in Parliament at the moment that didn't play some kind of an activist role in the past. So that's point number one. Point number two, anyone that would go and do a little bit of homework about that specific campaign would see that there was zero ill intent and it was against racial discrimination, which is, I think, very important to mention. I've read some sweeping statements about it, and it's clear to me that people are utterly ill-informed. And then thirdly, apart from that, is that my focus is crime. It always has been. It's been violent crime. For over the last decade, it's what I've dedicated
only
my
man that I want. You know my living. Only dreams about crime, bro.
And I've worked across every single cultural,
This is
racial,
malevolent
and
if he
community
was a
line
good
in this
guy, get it
country,
what
and
I'm
I
saying?
still do. Just today, I visited yet another family in one of the poorest townships in the Western Cape that lost a beloved daughter not too long ago when she was burnt in a trolley bin. So I am not going to have myself distracted by sideshows. Our focus is to stop 85 people from being murdered every day in South Africa, and once we start addressing that, I think we need to start looking at the other major crime crises that we have in this country.
Yeah.
Do you regret that incident?
Listen, he wants him to
I do
apologize.
not, and I look. I think as an activist, I've been very outspoken before. I'm not. I was an activist. As I said to you earlier, I don't think there's anyone in Parliament that was not an activist before. Something I find very interesting is that while you and I are having this discussion, you are not asking about the fact that on a day like today, 87 people were killed. It's interesting to me that you also don't ask the question about what the merit of that specific campaign was and why it was done. So it seems to me that you're only going on face value, and I think it would be better if you approached it more objectively.
Well, let me
Embarrassing.
be objective about it, because structures of the Democratic Alliance, and I'm taking you back now to 2014, when
I'm sorry, is this related to the Police Portfolio Committee?
Bro, he's going all the way
you
back
want
to
me
2014.
justify why I'm asking you the question
2014.
about blackface, because you
86 people get murdered a day on average in South Africa. He wants to talk about 2014 blackface, bro.
are trying to marry what
sorry,
you
no,
say
I'm
was
asking,
an activist
I'm asking
role.
because
Blackface
you said to me we're
is a very
discussing
offensive
policing
issue.
and crime tonight.
Bro.
No,
Ian Cameron.
I
Bro.
think
Ian Cameron.
you're not.
You're
No,
saying to me,
Yeah,
I
sorry,
need to
leader.
justify why I'm asking you this question. Remember,
No,
you
I
are
didn't say
a
that.
public you're a public representative right now, and you
Correct.
have
And
to.
you're a journalist.
Indeed, and I'm actually doing. that
No,
job
you're
in
not.
terms
You're
of
not.
This
You
is a
fail.
matter
You
that
fail, bro.
became topical very
You are not
recently,
doing
and
your
I'm
job.
saying to you,
But then you weren't
structures
truthful
of the
about what our
Democratic
incident
Stop
is
the
Alliance,
cap.
what this interview
structures
is
of the
about tonight.
Democratic Alliance.
I'm sorry,
have
you're not
condemned
being
this
truthful. I'm sorry, no, they haven't.
No.
They haven't.
Um,
They haven't.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know
So
what I
they
like much? Ian is not taking this BS. He's not taking this BS, and he's actually pushing back, right?
didn't condemn a blackface incident in the Democratic Youth Alliance, in the Dasso incident back in 2014.
You first of all, just explain to me, what does this have to do with crime in South Africa?
Today,
Right now,
Explain.
what you are doing is
No,
swaying the
no.
conversation away from.
No, I'm
what-
not. I'm saying to you the following.
He's just
I'm saying
yapping,
to
bro.
you that you asked me for an interview about crime and policing.
stop digging when you're in the hole, brother. Stop digging when you're in one. Take this advice, really, brother. When you're in one, stop digging.
Now, for 2/3 of the interview, you're speaking about something that has been explained. It's been discussed. The DA has commented about it. I have commented about it. I've said that today I might do things differently. I said that 3 weeks ago already.
Yeah, but you also say that you don't regret
you
it.
are not being truthful about the way that you are approaching this interview. You told me that tonight we were discussing crime. We were discussing that, and I
Expose
find
him.
it very sad that we're not talking about the children being murdered in Langa and Yanga, but you choose to rather focus on something that was against racial discrimination, by the way, which I haven't heard you say or acknowledge in any way. And I think that is utterly unfair of you. I also think it would be unfair of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what I like mostly about this video is that Cameron exposes the agenda that is set by the mainstream media.
To challenge me
Very clear.
without having been truthful about what the discussion would entail, and saying that I'm a public representative is also quite unfair, because that basically means that, according to your definition, I would need to stand and receive any kind of criticism, whether unfair or not, just because I am a public representative. I approach my work fairly and objectively. I've done so over the years.
Check his
I've
resume.
assisted in putting hundreds, if not more, very serious
check it.
violent offenders behind bars across all groups. And if you've walked a day in my shoes, then you can judge me. But please don't make assumption about who and what I am because of one thing that has been taken completely out of context, and you haven't acknowledged what the merit of a specific action was more than a decade ago. If you want to judge me, spend a day in my shoes, and then you're more than welcome to.
Well, look, for what it's worth, at least you have addressed the matter, because in the first instance, you said you don't regret it, but you also said
Stop digging when
that
you're in. Or
given another chance, perhaps you would have acted
Lord.
differently.
No. I said it's now more than a decade later. I have also developed. I'm older. I'm not an activist anymore, and therefore I think it's important to acknowledge. You would have noticed, if you researched it properly, that 3 weeks ago I said the same thing, and so did the DA. And we also said that times have changed, and the way that we communicate certain things that we feel strongly about have also changed. And as times change, we adapt. I think it's a very unfair approach of yours, and I think you've actually detracted value from the huge and important oversight role that we're meant to actually be playing regarding crime as a portfolio committee. And I'm so grateful for the committee that we have, because yesterday, despite different cultural approaches, political views, etc., we've got a committee that aren't sidelined by sideshows, but that are actually focused on fighting crime for all the people of South Africa.
Perfect.
Ian Cameron, let me thank you very much for your time. He is the newly appointed chair.
Complete toast, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen so much punches thrown at a man through it. Good job, Ian. Ladies and gentlemen, we are